There's a long list of former members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the entertainment industry, whether it's Hollywood or the music industry. And I highlight the word former because it seems every time you turn around, somebody who is a member of the church is leaving the church in a very publicized way, either on social media or in NBC interviews. So, why is that? Is it impossible to be a faithful member of the church in the entertainment industry? Let's find out. Welcome to the Rock and Roll Fireside featuring Brother Jacob's Jams. I am your humble host, Kyle Jacobs. Thanks for joining me today. Hey, before we go any further, don't forget to like and subscribe and to share away. And also don't forget to check out the music of Brother Jacob's Jams, available on Spotify, iTunes, and wherever music is streamed. So let's jump into this a little bit here. Is it possible to remain a faithful member of the church within the entertainment industry? Well, of course, everything is possible. But I'll tell you what, it's a little rough. Before we jump in, there's a couple of things I need to get out of the way. First, I realize that leaving the church and having a faith crisis involves multiple variables. We can't just look at somebody famous, they've left the church, oh, it's because they're in Hollywood, or it's because they're a rock star. No, there's lots of different variables that go into that. I get that. This video is talking about a single variable and the data and the trends that go into if this variable can help sustain faith or if it drives faith away. Second, we don't know famous people. I think us non-famous folk will look at whether it's a famous rock star or a sports star and be like, oh, I know this person. And you don't really. You know what you are shown by the media or by themselves. And so I totally get it. I'm not going to say like, haha, you're a rock star and that's why you left. There's probably lots of reasons, and there's so many things that we do not know. So I get it. So with that being said, let's jump into a couple of examples. First, Dan Reynolds of Imagine Dragons. He is the lead singer, super popular band, just has taken the charts by storm. He grew up a member of the church, served an LDS mission, and the whole thing. And now he is no longer a member, and he's pretty public about it. So let's find out what happened.
I had a hard time believing in God. Like, that's why I say faith. I don't like faith crisis because it kind of reflects on just religious terminology. Like, for me, it was, as a teenager, I really wanted to know if there was a God. And it seemed like nobody else around me really cared that much. For me, it was an obsession. But I was raised in a really religious home. My entire life was built around structure and religion. Yeah. And it's so much so that I went on a Mormon mission for 2 years, and based my whole life on something that, for me, really fell apart, and then I was left with nothing. So I went on a Mormon mission. I mean, I read the Bible every single day for years, and read the Book of Mormon, which is the Bible to the Mormons, and really studied it and built my life on that since I was a young kid. And then I came home from my mission, and then everything started to kind of crumble. So at the same time, the band was, like, I started this band, and the band started to take off, and then all I was singing about, really, I mean, everything in Imagine Dragons' discography is primarily based on crisis of faith. Yeah. I really think that a crisis of faith is extremely traumatic. And people who are raised with a deep sense of religion or faith, and then they lose it, it's very easy then to lose your complete way in life and go the full opposite direction. That's what happened to me. I mean, I lost my faith, and then I became a rock star, and then I said, well, I'm going to do everything, and just about killed myself in a million different ways.
You guys watching that clip, I honestly have a lot of sympathy for him. A faith crisis can be a real thing, and obviously he went through that, and I can't say that, like, oh, he sold his soul to get famous and he left the church. It doesn't come across that way at all. There's a couple of things here that I want to note. So first, one thing, when you leave the church, I think a lot of times us bystanders who stay in the church, it's a head scratcher for us because we're like, man, we heard you bear your testimony. You served a mission. How did you forget all of that? And there's a really important principle at play here. And it's found in Doctrine and Covenants, section 1, verse 33. And he that repents not, from him shall be taken even the light which he has received. For my spirit shall not always strive with man, saith the Lord of hosts. You guys, this is a fascinating concept because you would think logically, you're like, okay, if I was to leave the church, all those things that I knew to be true or had a testimony in, I can just kind of put it here on the shelf and recall it at another time if I'd like. No, there is no shelf life for faith. the light that you received is taken from you. And there's a couple of subtle things, not judging here, but there's a couple of subtle things that in that clip with Dan Reynolds shows you that. So first, when he says like, oh, I read the Book of Mormon, which is the Bible to the Mormons. No, it's not. Like, how could you not know that, right? We believe the Bible to be true as far as it's translated correctly. The Book of Mormon is a whole totally separate thing. And yet in this time of faithlessness, or at least leaving the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, all of a sudden he's referring to the Book of Mormon as the Bible of the Mormons. That doesn't make any sense. Somebody who has served a mission should know the difference. And that, to me, I know that's a small thing. That's just a subtle thing, but it highlights that concept that the light that you have received can be taken from you. You can forget, and you've got to start from ground zero again to get that light back. And that leads to the first principle of why I think the entertainment industry is not fertile ground for faith to grow. And that is, the world demands that you play by worldly rules. And it goes hand in hand with the idea that art is subjective. And so what I mean by that is what I think is beautiful art, amazing art, whether it's music or a movie or painting, could be totally panned by somebody else. And I remember growing up and like all my favorite bands, they weren't winning Grammys. And I would be so mad. I'm like, these guys were better. And art's not like that. Art's not like sports where it's like, hey, you score more points and you win. Art is totally subjective. And so you get into the entertainment industry, and the bigwigs who run that industry, they get to tell you, and they get to tell the world what's good and what's pushed and what's successful and what makes money. That's a problem, because when you have a small amount of people doing that and pushing that, then their morals and their worldviews are going to be what attracts them to bands and actors and movies that embrace that. They don't want to be told that they're wrong. They don't want to be told that they're immoral. So they are going to push that, and that's where that success is going to come from. Ultimately, if you do not bend the knee to what the industry demands, it is so difficult to get ahead, to be able to have some success. Now, I'm speaking from personal experience here. For the longest time, I was in a band that was trying to make it. And I'm not talking about like, okay, I'm in a teenage band and like this is a dream of mine. No, this was a goal of mine for years, and we slaved away as a band to try to make it. And I think our music was great. Again, there's that subjectivity there. But in the industry itself, we had an experience. We go to LA, we play this big show in Hollywood, and it was just so icky. And we knew that this was the way we would have to deal with things. And these are the people that we'd have to deal with that are at least acting immoral and wanting us to do immoral things and pushing the things that we are against. And we realized we won't be able to survive here. And our faith and our dedication to the Lord took more importance and was more important to us than success. And that was really one of the harder decisions that we've ever had to make, was breaking up that band, because we felt we had something great, but the world that we were jumping into was just not good. And I'll tell you what, when we would go in and we'd play at bars and clubs and places that aren't really conducive to the moral high ground, we would leave after our set. We'd play and then we'd go. Whereas other bands would go in and they would play and then they would hang out and have a few drinks and hang out with the fans and gain this following because they're having personal connections with these fans. And we wouldn't do that because it's not like we hated them. I mean, we wanted to talk to them, but we didn't want to be drinking and hanging around that atmosphere. And so we would leave. And that was not conducive to being able to build a following and get people to buy our music and to follow us from performance to performance. We did not bend the knee to the world's rules, and we paid the price for it if you're talking about the success of the band. There's another thing that this highlight from Dan Reynolds points out, and it's principle number 2 as to why the entertainment industry, I don't feel, is a good place for the faith to grow. And that is the sheer amount of temptation around you, right? And Dan talks about that. He talks about how, like, hey, I had this faith crisis and totally went the other way and almost killed myself with all these, it's safe to assume, substances and things like that. You guys, there is so much sex and booze and drugs and embezzlement and cheating and all of these things that happen in the entertainment industry, and they are embraced in the entertainment industry. You look at Hollywood and the stuff that they're putting out, look at the messages that they're giving, look at what's being populated in those movies. That is what they are embracing. And if you don't play, again, by that rule, you don't get that movie part. You don't get a chance to headline a show because you know what? You didn't go do a line of coke with somebody in the back, right? And that's legitimately how it is. Again, personal experience. We went to this show one time, and this was the oddest thing ever. We went to this show and we're setting up, and people are starting to file in, and this guy looks at me, and I can tell something is churning in his brain. I can tell he's thinking, he's like, and he's got this quizzical look on his face. And he comes up to me and he says, "Hey, come here." I'm like, "Okay, what's up?" And he pulls out a flask, just a nasty, gross metal flask full of alcohol of some kind, and hands it to me. And I swear to you, he has this look like, "Hey, are you going to take this?" And I was like, no, thanks. And he's like, "Uh-huh." And then he walks away. I don't know his thoughts, but I guarantee you, he's like, "These guys are a bunch of Mormons. I'm going to see if they're going to stay true to it." And that's what it felt like to me anyways. But a complete stranger handing me his personal flask, first of all, that's pretty icky. Like, you've been drinking out of that. And second of all, he was able to zero in that we were a bunch of clean-cut dudes who wouldn't take part in that. And that's the other thing. You know that Satan targets members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints who could have a big microphone, who could affect all sorts of people in a positive way, who could influence people. You know Satan wants to chop us off at the knees, right? And so the temptation thrown at Latter-day Saints in the entertainment industry is greater than anything because he wants us to fall. He does not want us to be successful. And when his influence is in the top echelon of the people who make all the rules and who push all the entertainment, when he is in their heads, it's dang near impossible unless you join the dark side, right? Unless you jump into that world with both feet and really get yourself in trouble. There's another high profile, not exit from the church, but it's iffy, and it's the most recent one, and it's Lindsey Sterling. So she came out with this, with a recent post of her drinking coffee and answering questions of whether or not she is a member of the church. And so here's what she posted here. I'll just read it to you. It says, quote, "On paper, it may seem like I'm not anymore a member of the church because I actively support the LGBTQ plus community. I wear sleeveless shirts sometimes, and now, quote unquote, she drinks coffee. For way too long, I defined my connection to God by a huge list of rules, and that led to so much shame. I don't let shame govern me anymore, and surprisingly, I felt God's love more than ever. The fact is, I love my Mormon faith, upbringing, and connection with God it gives me. Great. I also love all the beautiful things I've learned from other religions. Also great. I think God gives truth everywhere. Very true. So y'all will just have to keep speculating and gossiping about whether or not I'm still Mormon, because my coffee and I aren't going to tell you." Okay. Again, like I said, lots of variables here. I'm not going to judge her for drinking coffee, okay? And she makes it clear. Well, she doesn't make it clear. She makes it ambiguous on whether or not she's in the church. But she hasn't come out and says, "I have left the church." Great. Do I think that she's missing a great opportunity to be an ambassador for the church? Absolutely. It's been really neat. And this is from a fan's point of view. And I know maybe this is just human nature, but when you see somebody who's an active member of the church in Hollywood or in the music industry, you're like, hey, that's one of us. And it's inspiring. And Lindsey Sterling has been that. So she very well could still be a member of the church. I don't want to gossip about that. Is she losing an opportunity, or is she giving up an opportunity to be a great ambassador for the church? I think so, because that's clearly a standard that she is choosing to go below, but that doesn't mean she's left the church. I get it. I get it, okay? But still, the idea that all of these temptations are thrown at you and your standards lower, and then, this is what the sad part about this is, that she's talking about so much shame because of a list of rules. How long have the brethren and leaders of the church, the sisters as well, in general conference talked about, hey, this isn't a list of rules. This is about changing your heart. And yet someone who is active in the church is still struggling with that and promoting that, like, oh, there's these list of rules. Okay, we've got standards, right? And so it's not wrong to follow those standards. And so I don't know what's going through her mind and through her heart. Certainly this isn't to pick on her and say, oh, you're not a perfect Mormon. And here's the other thing. I know she didn't sign up to be, well, I'm going to be the Mormon violinist. she got famous for being an amazing violinist. So it may be unfair to say like, oh, you should be an ambassador to the church, but you know what? People are watching. And that's just the nature of the business, okay? And that's just the nature of the world, that people are watching. They know you're a member of the faith. And now there's just this little shadow that you're casting. So again, that's just an example of the temptations, the substances of the things that are thrown our way as members of the church to put just any little crack in the armor. The third principle here that makes the entertainment industry almost a barren wasteland of faith is the sheer amount of time that it takes away from things that would grow your faith. So what I mean by that, let's say you're a big famous rock star, you're on tour 6, 7, 8, 9 months out of the year, you're not holding the calling, probably not, right? How much time are you taking to read your scriptures? Are you going to church every day? Are you taking the not every day, but every week? Are you taking the sacrament every week? I don't know. I know that it's possible. Again, this isn't casting judgment, but I think it's very, very difficult for all the work that goes into getting rich and famous in the industry and still maintaining those things that will build your faith. Those things that take time, that take prioritization. The entertainment industry, you guys, is so ruthless and is so competitive. It is not this like, hey, I wrote this great song and now it's huge and now I'm rich. It's not that. It is more work than you can ever imagine. It is not your 9-to-5 job. It is an 80, 120 hours a week type of thing, right? How much time can you possibly spend building, intentionally building your faith? Not a lot. And I think that contributes to the fact that the entertainment industry may not be right for you if you want to hold on to your faith. Finally, the fourth principle that makes the entertainment industry just rough, and that is the judgment that you get from others. Now, this last example of somebody who's leaving the church or who has very publicly left the church is the one that really just kind of chaps me a little bit, okay? And that's David Archuleta. Check out this interview.
I guess I still need to figure out who to be, because it's like starting again. Like I feel like I'm a little kid again in a way, because I was someone for so long, and when I left my church, it's like there's like, now what? Who am I now? I don't have the same, like, I didn't drink coffee up until a year and a half ago, or alcohol for my first time a year and a half ago as well, and swearing, and I don't know, just all these things that like I'm an adult now, but I'm 33, so it's like I feel like I'm delayed in being an adult, but and going out to clubs and dancing because we were told not to go to clubs as a Mormon. So it's just interesting to be like, oh, fun. And I've even gone with my mom to clubs. We've both gone dance. She came to visit me last week, and we went out dancing and had so much fun. I think I just want to show people, it's like, yeah, I want to show them that I left and that I'm happy, because a lot of times when you're in like a more closed off community, a lot of times people try to make you feel like if you leave, you're not going to be happy. It's scary to leave the bubble. And so I want people to see, you know what, I came out, and the church has a lot of great things about it, but it also wasn't happy for me to be the way I am. Like they wanted me to change back into pretending that I'm not queer. And I'm like, you know what? I'm happier where I am. I'm a lot happier. And yeah, there are things about my old community and church that made me happy, but I'm so much happier where I am now. And I want people to see that. And a lot of people are scared. They're like, I can't leave. Like my family and my friends and everything I know is here. And if I leave this, I'm going to have nothing. So it's very scary. But I think for me, it's like, you know what? Sometimes it takes time. Like I didn't come out until I was 30 years old. So sometimes you need to give yourself some time. But for me, it was worth the risk of losing everything, because I almost gave up my whole life. I almost gave my life up to not leave the bubble. And when I left, it was just, there's so much more. There's to life and so many other things that can make you happy. And you can accept yourself and find people who will accept you, and not have to always be afraid. Well, if this ever comes out of me, oh my gosh, I'll never forgive myself and everyone will reject me.
Okay, guys, here's what bothers me about this. First of all, with the other two examples, we've got people who are jumping into the music industry and they are not going out there as loud, proud LDS. They just happen to be LDS and they try to share the light, and that's good, and they lose that light, whatever that journey is. David Archuleta, a part of his staple was that he was LDS. That was a huge part of his story. I know it was American Idol that he got in, but a huge part of it was that the church was a huge part of his life. And he benefited and leveraged that. He was the singer to one of the youth themes, for crying out loud. And that was one of his main things. And the church embraced him like crazy. We all knew that he was gay, right? He came out and there was such a groundswell of support. Now, I cannot speak to what he looked at or what he experienced personally in his ward with his bishop. I don't know, but I don't buy it. It's like, oh, I was looked at so wrongly. Oh, no. I doubt that. And if that happens, first of all, that happens to everybody, right? We are all slightly judged by other people in any, not just the church, in any human endeavor that we're at. Somebody's going to cross their eyes at us. And I don't care if you are a straight white male or if you are a gay show tune singer, right? That's just going to happen. So let's grow a spine a little bit here. Second, this idea that like, oh, I can now be an adult. I can now go out and do all of these things I never could have done before. It is so damaging. It is so damaging to people who have followed him and have looked up to him. And I suspect that the judgment that he would receive from the industry about being LDS was harsher and louder than any judgment he got from the church for being gay. Because I personally witnessed how the church embraced him, how the leadership of the church embraced him. The judgment that comes from the world that you do not bend the knee to is extremely harsh. And in the entertainment industry, you are going to get that 24/7. It is so difficult to be proud about your standards, to wear those standards on your sleeves in a music industry that detests Christianity, that detests religion, and that calls you all sorts of names if you have any type of tie to that type of thing. So again, this is the one that gets me a little bit hot around the collar, and I should repent. I'm trying to be kind, but this is the one that bugs me a little bit here. All of these case studies, to me, shows a trend that the entertainment industry is not fertile ground for faith to grow. Now, obviously, there are exceptions. You've got the Osmonds. Now, they came about in the 60s and 70s, right? So they're old school, and it's not like I follow everybody here. I think the lead singer, Brandon Flowers, to the Killers, is still LDS. I'm not sure what's happened with him, but it is possible, but it is so difficult. The ground is hard. It is not fertile ground. And so if you have a creative bone in your body, what do you do? What if you want to be an entertainer and be a musician and do all these things? You guys, there is a counterculture that is rising up. There is an industry that is generating within the faith community. If you look at things like Angel Studios, which pushes Christian content and content that's not necessarily overtly Christian, but that is moral, that is family-centered. And their movies are starting to get pretty dang good, you guys. So you've got things like that are happening. There are organizations like the LDS PMA. I've been to a couple of their conferences that is trying to promote authors and musicians and even actors to stay with the faith and try to push this a new industry. You guys, that's there. Find that and grow. And most importantly, use your art to share light with people, the light of the gospel. Don't be afraid to do that. There is no restriction. If you want to put out a song or a piece of art or a movie that embraces all of those good things, you can do it. The technology is out there to do it. So I encourage you to do that for the building up of the kingdom. So once again, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and put your comments down below. What do you think about this? And finally, don't forget to live with faith and courage. We'll see you next time.